Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tights Frame of Mind. I am your host, Pantyhose King.
I'm your co-host, McSheer, for those of you that don't know.
I don't think you're not like my sidekick. I think of you as my partner. And don't take that as I'm flirting with you. I know that's what you think, and it's not what it is, so calm down, all right? Keep it professional. We have a special guest today, the most specialist guest I think we've had on the show so far.
Yeah, I love Kathy. I'm actually a big fan of hers. It's because of her that we are even doing this podcast, as you guys will go on to hear.
Yes.
Who is it? Tell us who it is, Mr. King.
Well, you actually just did. You said Kathy, and it is Kathy from Strictly Anonymous, Kathy K.
I blew the big drum roll.
That was great. You were like, we have a very special guest. You'll never guess who it is. It's Kathy K. All right, tell us who the guest is.
For those who don't know, she runs a really successful podcast and Patreon and YouTube
Strictly Anonymous.
She's got Strictly Anonymous platform, which is for everyone. But one of the things that she is huge on, she has a whole sector, a whole department for people like us who adore tights and pantyhose.
Yes.
And she's a big advocate for it. So yeah, we got her on.
She calls us her hosers, and these two hosers actually met through her. I had done an episode where she suggested that I should do a podcast, and then McSheer contacted me, and the rest is hosery.
Well done, King RuPaul, Pantyhose King.
I guess we should just skip all the bullshit and just jump right into this interview because I know you're all dying for it.
Do you want to have a little catch up? Have you
a little catch up?
Got any hose stories? Anything updates?
Oh, you mean the ones that we deleted in the earlier take?
Yeah. The King here didn't have his equipment working, so we've had to start again.
My equipment works just fine. I just didn't have it prepped.
You made a really funny point about when I was talking about being McSheer.
It does sound like Macbeth because you always say you don't like the sound of your name, and I think that it should be, McSheer, but instead of it being McSheer, it could be Macbeth, right? So it's McSheer.
The tragedy of McSheer.
Yes, the tragedy of McSheer.
And Lady McSheer.
Lady McSheer come in and she's like,
"Oh, you better wear those pantyhose because if you don't, she's not a man, and if you do not wear them, you should dash your babies on the rocks."
And the witches as well. What would they be wearing?
I feel like they would be wearing tights.
They're definitely hoses. Yeah.
But like those green and black striped ones that
Someone like you would be one of them.
I'd be a witch too. I don't have a witch voice lined up, unfortunately.
Yeah, hit one of your other buttons.
Does this work? I don't know.
That's exactly what your voice would be as the witch. That works brilliantly.
Witch. A pantyhose witch. Bubble, shit that should run.
The end. I think we've decided what we'll be doing is a spoof of William Shakespeare called McSheer.
In the meantime, go and enjoy this chat we had with our, what do you call her, the Patron Saint of Pantyhose?
She is the Patron Saint of Pantyhose. I dubbed that myself, and as you will see. But Kathy K from Strictly Anonymous, check it out. I knew I was going to mess that up because we have a really special guest today. And we're going to leave that in because it's just what happened. So, and our guest today is Kathy from Strictly Anonymous.
Hi, you guys.
Hello.
Hi, McSheer.
Hey, Kathy. How you doing? It's great to hear your voice.
I'm sure you all know her well. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for her. So,
oh my God, I love that.
It's true. We were talking about it. I dubbed you the Patron Saint of Pantyhose because
oh my God, that's hilarious. I like
you brought us together.
Good ring. He's got a good ring.
Yeah, you brought us together. You connected us, and we're doing this. So, I guess the first question would be, when was the first time you discovered the ubiquitous nature of the pantyhose fetish? Like, at what point in your journey as doing this podcast?
Very early on, way before I set up my Patreon and dedicated a special tier to it. Because very early on, my show, I needed callers for people to call in because my show wasn't big enough yet. I had to go out and pound the pavement and get people to call in. Nobody was emailing me. So I went on to Craigslist and I wound up in the personal section. I would post ads there and I would go looking there for people to call into my show. And I would go under every category. Guys for guys, girls for girls, casual encounters, that kind of stuff. And I have to tell you, that's when it really jumped out at me that there was a lot. There were like so many pantyhose fetish ads, like pantyhose fetish and foot fetish were two of the biggest things that I saw on there. Besides, just people want to fuck people.
Yeah, right.
It just stood out to me that this whole pantyhose thing existed. And that was very new to me.
Now, how has your like opinion of pantyhose changed? You seem like a total convert, as in a sense that you didn't seem to be like one of the people who maybe understood it or would have liked having somebody with that fetish and in a relationship with you. So how has that changed for you?
Well, I never put it together like, oh, I wouldn't want somebody with that fetish in a relationship. I'm the kind of person that I've dated all kinds of guys that are into all kinds of things, like nothing weird or anything or like really hardcore fetish, but I'm down to try anything. So I never was like, oh, I would never do anything with pantyhose. I have just never been with a guy that had a pantyhose fetish, but my relationship to pantyhose definitely changed more so in how I feel about them and me wearing them, as well as like how much guys are into them and how girls don't really know that. Like I never realized that if I put on a pair of like really nice pantyhose with my really nice outfit when I go out, that I'm going to have a lot of guys thinking that I'm like 2 points higher on the scale, right? Because I'm wearing pantyhose. I just never realized how powerful, like the power in them. And I don't think most women do. I hated pantyhose. I didn't fucking understand them. And I'm very straight up on my show. I'm not like a phony pretending I'm into pantyhose so I could get guys that are into pantyhose to listen to my show. I was kind of always like, I don't really get it, But over time, and when I started my Patreon page and started a specific pantyhose fetish tier, that's when things started to change. And strictly because I started doing like reviews. I set up an Amazon wish list. I had people buy me pantyhose and I would take them out. I would feel them. I would look, I would, give my impression. I would do like first impression videos. Then I would wear them and tell people what I thought. And I really got into it that way because I just needed content for my quote unquote hosers. That's why I started to call my pantyhose fetish guys that were on my Patreon. I wanted to, good content for them. And I realized that that's what the guys like. So I started for that. But then I really started to see pantyhose different just because I was wearing them. I was putting them on. I was feeling them. I was comparing them. And it really changed. I was always a tights person. I really realized that about myself too. I like black tights, like a thicker sort of look, that's like my vibe. And it just made me feel like, oh, I would wear pantyhose now. And I never would have in the past.
You said something earlier about when you learned about how you said that from realizing how many guys out there just simply adored them, it put you up a couple of notches. How different is that though? How different is that though to if you realize how many guys desperately wanted to wear as well though?
Yeah, that was the second thing. The first thing was that guys were into them hardcore, seeing them on women. And then this whole thing opened because of my show where I heard so many men who actually wore themselves. And I mean, at this point, I always say in my show, the next time you're with a group of 50 guys in a room, lock the door, turn the lights on, and say, everyone drop their fucking pants. How many guys do you think are going to be wearing hose? I bet you in a room of 50 guys, you're going to get a guy or two in there. It's that, to me, seems that that common. I don't know.
Do you think that's different to other items of women's clothes though?
You mean bras and panties, guys wearing bras and panties?
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that's true of all of them, or do you think there's something about pantyhose that is so much more? I don't want to say the word special, but I'll say special. But you know what I mean.
They're better.
I think it's that. I think there's more. I've taught. I put out episodes on guys who want to wear all kinds of different things. Bras and panties. Most of the time, what I find out a lot of the times is those guys also, might have started with a pantyhose fetish. I just feel like the pantyhose fetish is much more common. And I feel like there's more guys that are into that than anything else. I do think it also feeds other things. And it was very interesting to me that a lot of times the foot fetish and the pantyhose fetish are together as well.
Oh, definitely.
But a lot of times when I'm talking to a person who is wearing bras and panties, they call up, like the pantyhose fetish thing comes into play as well there. So I think personally, just from my own unscientific view of things,
you're probably hugely just in terms of the sheer volume of people you've spoken to and people have opened up to you. You must have a wealth of knowledge, like you just said about, we talked about other clothings or pantyhose being like a gateway almost to other things, but there's definitely the purists among us, and I feel like just being parts of your groups. I'm one of your hosers. I'm on the Discord where there's a huge amount. I've met the Pantyhose King and all that. There is a huge number.
You have,
as in of purists, who haven't. Like, I'm not really interested in.
I have cross-dressed before. I just it's like a lot of work, really.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work for me. But I still obsess over doing it more than you do. Do you know what I mean? I get. I wouldn't wear the hose like you do, just day to day. I wear them to feminize myself. But however, I wouldn't feminize myself without them.
Right. See, that's the thing. That's that connection. So, and does every cross-dresser have a pantyhose fetish, or is it always a little bit, or is it not a pantyhose fetish? Those are the kinds of things I like to dig deep on.
Yes, same. I'm always so surprised when you're talking to a cross-dresser who isn't a hoser, or in my life where I've met cross-dressers who they go, "Oh, I hate tights. I much prefer stockings." Or even when they wear women's trousers. That confuses me. I'm like,
how come?
Because it feels so much less feminine, right?
Oh, right. It's like a different vibe. It's funny though that you have just such different words than Americans, because you're saying you're throwing out pantyhose, trousers, like tights, stockings. What's the difference between trousers and women's pants to you?
So yeah, women's pants are we just say trousers for everything across the board.
Yeah.
Girls would say they're wearing a pair of trousers. Guys they're a different style. But yeah, when you're saying pants or pants.
No. You just said something. You said, when girls are wearing these, I don't understand if they're wearing trousers. You were comparing trousers to something else, or was it the same thing?
Well, I mean, when male cross-dressers dress in women's trousers, I find that confusing, because I go, why would you? It doesn't. Surely there's not enough of a change in what you're.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It's too manly for a man. It's like, no.
I started a cross-dresser tier, and I don't want to get too much into that, but I love their slutty outfits, because as a girl, like, that's what I was always like. If there's an extreme sort of vibe that's very feminine to me, and I think it's because of Barbie. I mean, Barbie wore the sluttiest outfits, and we grew up with that. I love that kind of stuff, and I love my cross-dressers when they get dressed up. Most of them go, a little bit slutty. I kind of like it. I think it's fun.
I heard a theory behind this, and it's to do with the fact that we are effectively having to start where women started when they were teenage girls. But we don't get to start till we're middle-aged men, so we relive what you guys went through.
You're like adolescents.
Yeah, so we sort of, and because it's still in secret, because it's not as often, the journey is so much slower, and that's why it's quite funny. Do you know what I mean? You get blokes up until they're right through their lives, probably.
That would make sense, because it's only older cross-dressers are the ones that seem to be like a little bit calmer.
Yeah.
You do Strictly Anonymous isn't just about pantyhose, although I think that, at least I feel like pantyhose sort of brought it to a much larger audience. I mean, how much when you look at the numbers, when did you really start to spike? What was the time when you went from, small to big? When did you really notice?
It was, I gotta say, because sex sells.
Yes.
Okay. And I wrote really descriptive titles, straight from the beginning. And so I was always did pretty good, and I grew slowly. I never had a moment in time where things change and all of a sudden I was huge. I have been doing my show for 7 years now, maybe 8.
Really?
I don't even know. Yeah, that long. So, I had very good numbers coming out of the bat. Like, I mean, in good numbers, I mean, like I was getting 200 people listening to an episode right off the bat.
Wow.
Right away, which is good in podcast, but I think it was because it was sex, and it was, I wrote really good descriptions, and my keywords of sex would pop up, and it was in the sexuality category, and there weren't a lot of people, so it was there. But I would, because I didn't have people emailing me to be on the show, and I was going out and looking for people, I did have more pantyhose fetish guys on during that time, because like I said, there were so many ads there. So, and those episodes always did well. And then I always got emails from other ones, and so that's when I really put it together that this is a big thing, and I had it more. But, there are over time, I have seen different things being, more downloaded than others. Nowadays it's anything with gangbang or hot wife or swingers,
Wow.
Yeah.
Really well. But I like the fetish stuff, and I like to include that. I started a whole Fetish Fridays episode that I just focus on fetishes, because it tends to be a little bit smaller than those other topics now that my audience is so much larger, but I still want to tap into that audience, and I still want to talk about those things, because I don't want a show just about swingers. I started my show to be about everything, so I love my Fetish Fridays. I love that I'm still talking about different specific fetishes. And of course I have more pantyhose content there, as well as cross-dressing, because those are two of the bigger ones.
You have, I mean, the whole brand is so cool. And as you just mentioned, I promise I won't do too much of this, but blow a bit of smoke up your ass here, because you just got this, the brand is amazing, but what you bring to it, it's so cool, that you've got the anonymity thing going. It's just gives everyone this, it's just such a genius thing. But then add to that, as you said, 7 years ago, I think I first Googled a podcast. I remember I was on a bus touring through the UK. I remember just tapping it in, almost terrified that if anyone then saw in my phone's history that I'd searched it and all this. And
oh my God.
There's a few like things popped up that were just rubbish. There was a few, they weren't quite what it was, but I stumbled upon yours, and it was that you happened to have an episode on someone who had a really similar feelings to me, completely gripped me. But it was the way that you were so unbelievably curious about it. I remember thinking, oh, she must be into it too, which I've since learnt you're not. You're just completely curious. And,
I like it. I'm really interested about anything. Like, I'm somebody that lives for the fucking internet, because, like, I don't know, I like to know things, everything. My brain loves to know, and so all this kind of stuff, that's why, like I said, I still do my Fetish Fridays, and I wanted to add that in and keep it going, because I love to dig deep. And I think when you have a fetish, there's a lot of depth there, and that's the kind of thing that I dig. And I could talk to 150 guys with a pantyhose fetish, I'm going to get a different story every time. And a lot of times what's great about it is people will be able to pick and choose a little bit here or there that really stands out to them and that they could relate to. But I think the other stuff that maybe you can't relate to, it's interesting, or you learn from. And so I'll always talk to another guy with a pantyhose fetish, because it doesn't matter how many I talk to. For me, it's always interesting because it's a real person story, and they're always a little bit different. And I always learn something new talking to somebody.
What did you learn from McSheer? I wondered what did McSheer?
I haven't done it yet.
But you called it with John Smith, though. We did
a
Patreon something together.
And she knows that story, right? Of you with your pink champagne and you missed the call. And
yes, I know, because he was all set up and booked a hotel room. Did you guys talk about that yet?
We did. He masturbated sadly after he realized. He still masturbated though.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
But
it's so interesting that you found my show, like you said, Googling. Like, that's where I've never gone on other people's podcasts, really. Like, that's one thing I haven't utilized to grow my show, but I grew really big.
You know what? I might not have Googled it. I think I was on. Have you heard of the app Castbox? There's multiple podcasts within it, and I think I typed in a few keywords into Castbox.
Yeah, but that's the whole right. and you found it. But when I'm Googling for my Instagram to get pictures of like whatever I'm promoting, so if I'm promoting gangbangs and I want to like I get a cool word gangbang so I could put it on my show pops up at first or second page, third page, or it pops up on those keywords on, a podcast app. And that's how I grew over time, just for people finding me like that, which I was really lucky. But I think that there's a lot of people looking for that content. Every time I post a pantyhose episode, I can't tell you how many emails I get afterwards or comments on YouTube. Like I have the same exact thing. People are desperate if they have a fetish or still sitting at home thinking about it, thinking they're alone somehow. There's still people out there like that.
You know how you said earlier how powerful they were as a piece of clothing in terms of being attractive? Isn't it amazing how powerful the feeling of shame that is also attached to it for guys?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It bothers me. It bothers me.
It always baffled me though as a woman, because I gotta tell you, I think just like women don't really understand men. I do, because I always had a lot of guy friends, so I always knew that guys liked all kinds of girls. Every girl thinks every guy only likes a girl that's skinny and perfect body and face. I was like, no, you're so dumb. Guys is like tits and ass, and there's like they like sexy, they like all different things. It's like proportion. But I think that men don't understand women, and they think that because women are very, I don't know what the word is. We're very down and open. If we really like a guy,
yeah, you'll make it happen. If you like them, you'll do it.
Yeah.
See, that's my thing, though. As that was my thing, is that because I do wonder with the women who are with men who shame them or who are disgusted. Now that's a woman who truly does not understand a man, because if you are going to, if you're accepting the man, you have to accept the fetish, right?
But that's not what I mean. I don't mean they don't understand it in that way. I think it's a harder sell for the woman. We're talking about two different guys here. The guy who likes his girl to wear, as well as the guy who wants to wear. But what I mean with women not really, or men not really understanding women, that women don't no, I mean, you're going to tell her, you're going to sit across from your girl and be like, listen, I have a pantyhose fetish. I love seeing you wear them. I mean, I don't know one girl that would break up with a guy because of that. But yet there's so many guys that have that fetish that are petrified.
Aren't they the wearers though? Like me?
No, I have that. That's what it's so. No, but there's also guys that are just have the fetish that they love. No, if there's those two.
Now, see, that's where I wonder. I wonder if those are closeted wearers, because I have met a lot of guys who they say they only want to see me in them, and then it doesn't take a lot of like push to get them to try it on for the first time. So
maybe, I don't know. I always think people are telling me the truth, because what do they have? What's in it for them to lie to me? I really create like the perfect space, because people are anonymous, or even anonymous to me, so that I really get the truth. This is the first time they're coming clean, like put it on the fucking table. And I always feel like I am getting, but maybe you're right. Maybe there's something more there,
I think you create a perfect situation. I mean, you create a very wonderful setup for people to tell the truth. And I think, I'm not saying that people don't, but I think when some things like that don't seem to make sense, and there's there's something that's not, it's not connecting. I feel like, just being a gay man and knowing that in private you can have somebody. I've literally slept with a guy, and then we were finished, and afterwards, like 2 seconds after sex, he goes, "So what do you think I could do to make girls talk to me more often?" And I was like, "Well, maybe don't open with the fact that you fuck dudes. That would be my first."
Oh my God.
Because it's that kind of like, repression that you can't even shake, even if you're in a place where you think you're safe. So
yeah, and a lot of times if it's closeted, maybe somebody doesn't even know. So maybe it's not that they're not being honest, that they don't even maybe know they have that. I don't know, but I do know that there's a lot of guys that have the fetish, and they're not even wearers, but they do feel uncomfortable about it. They do feel like it's not normal.
Right at the beginning of this chat, we asked about why more so than bras, for example, or some other garments of clothing. I wonder if there's something specifically, there's just something about the item that's so powerful in so many directions.
Well, I mean, legs are sexy. I mean, on everybody, legs are sexy, right?
Like, we're doing a Beyonce themed episode soon, Kathy, where we both have to dress like
Beyonce from Single Ladies.
Oh my God, hilarious.
I'm going to look like a great ape.
And my current partner, she was talking about how she's starting to enjoy seeing me put them on, which is a whole 180 from when it started. She was terrified at first. And I've had other partners who have been much more open to it, and lots who have been very negative about it.
Yeah.
And so it's just off the back of what you were saying about when they think it's about them wearing and me admiring, which it is as well. They love that bit. They really love that bit. They start wearing them more. They start saying, "Hey, I bought these," and they started coming to say, "I didn't realize how much I liked them," and it's quite cool that. But then I have to break them the news, and I break the news to them that I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna wear them as well." It never goes down as well.
That's a whole different thing. But like when you say I have the girl that hated them, the girl that loved them, like I like all those stories, you know, and I love a story like you said that your one girl now that you're with is coming around and she is accepting it, because I feel like those kinds of stories give other people hope, and to me that's what it's always about, you know, people being able to release their secret private lives and their shame and just be straight up who they are with their partner and have that other person accept it.
But you have some guests on, I think, that have got really cool situations where it sounds like it's quite plain sailing. And you always hope that you'll have that. And when it doesn't go that well, even if it goes quite well, even if they're like, yeah, okay, cool. But then they're not game to... There doesn't seem to often be empathy for what you've buried all your life. Do you know what I mean? They sort of go, okay, cool. And you're sort of like, oh, hang on, I've been so vulnerable in front of you. All right, it's not your problem. It's not for you to have to understand immediately, but you kind of wish for a bit more of a celebration about it.
But there's you struggled more than most, but in the end, you're still coming to grips with what it is, and you're embracing it. So in the end, Kathy's her podcast has been a catalyst for you to heal, and maybe the lesson here is that
being able to tell you what, talking of for other guys out there listening, what helped my partner was showing her Kathy's podcast, showing her when she heard other guys talking about it, she was less worried about me talking about myself. Do you know what I mean? She started, because I get all hot and flustered and probably whereas she's hearing people talk for an hour at a time to Kathy on this, and she's hearing it differently. And
it also helps that Kathy is a woman. I mean, it just gives, like, you can't be the women who are like, oh, a woman would never like a man, and that, you know, like those kind of like girls. When you hear a woman like Kathy, that kind of shoots it down. It's like, well, no, there are women who are not, just going to flat out reject somebody for talking about it or wearing it or whatnot. I think that
it's coming up to autumn now. Do you reckon you'll be wearing them this year, Kathy?
Yes, I haven't made the announcement yet because I don't like to make announcements that not deliver, but I go through like phases, and my phases are not short-lived; they're long-lived. Like I'll go through a 7-year phase, and then and I'll just totally change things up, and over the summer, I've been wearing more dresses. I used to only wear dresses and skirts and tights always. That was like my gear. I never had a pair of jeans ever. I didn't own one pair. When skinny jeans came into play, I was like, oh my God, I remember seeing my first pair. I was like, I fucking love those. And then I got into wearing jeans, and then that's all I wore. Like, I'm a very extreme person. I was like, well, one way or the other. And that's all I wore for the past 10 years. I never had any tights or mini skirts or dresses or anything like that at all. It wasn't my vibe. And over the summer, I started to wear sundresses. And like when I was going shopping, I bought something already for the fall. That's like a mini dress. And I'm like, I could do the, black tights with these. So I was like, my fucking hosers are going to be so happy, because there is a shift going with Kathy where I'm going to have to be wearing them because I'm changing my vibe and my style. So that's something that I'm telling you guys before I even
Boners. Boner,
Yeah.
boner, boner.
If you say 7-year shifts, surely
Yes.
this time round it's going to be very different for you. Every time you buy a pair or put a pair on, you're like, oh my God, these things I used to not even give 2 seconds thought about hold so much more weight. And
Exactly.
a little wry smile, I'm sure, will come across your face on occasion when you think of some of the stories you've had.
But I think I'll be able to also do it better too. I think I'm more open to different colors, to different styles, to because of what I've learned from my hosers by trying them all out, the brands, the colors, the dens, all that stuff.
Can I ask you about the infamous podcast where you had your girlfriends come in and rate who they thought were women's legs?
Yeah,
and they were pretty vicious until they found out that they were men, and then it changed entirely. I wonder what was the aftermath that when they all talked about. Did you guys talk about that afterwards and sort of like break down like why it went the way that it did or anything like that? Because I'm curious what was
it was just as they were just blown away. I mean, that's what it was. They were a little drunk. So, I love that because I knew exactly what I was doing. My other friend who didn't get involved knew what was going on. So I had told her midway. I was like, I need to tell somebody because this is just too good. I had duped them the whole time. I printed out all the pictures. They thought that they were analyzing women's legs and pantyhose. Not one time did they think this is not a woman's legs at all. They were very critical, which was very odd to me because I saw things very different. And maybe it's because I wasn't looking as much. To me, these guys, all the guys had way better legs than women. That was one of the things I spoke to Diana Hansen about, that what I was super impressed with was that, I found that every picture that a guy sent me of them wearing pantyhose, like not these totally beat every woman's legs that I know. And she was like, yeah, that's because men have more muscle tone and better shape. You women don't have legs like that. And I couldn't believe that they were being so judgy and they, but when they found out that it was guys, their reaction was so great. And then they saw things so different, like you said, which was so fascinating to me. And it was just still like they were just blown away.
Do you think it was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to be jealous anymore? Like that bitch isn't a bitch. She said.
I don't think they were self-aware enough to put that together, but I felt like they were very judgy when it was girls. And I don't understand because all of those legs look better than their legs. I'm like, I don't understand.
She's like, what did they say? Like, it looks like a plucked chicken. It's like,
did they not question why you were asking them to do it, even when they thought it was women, let alone when they found out it was guys? Were they then like, why on earth?
Yeah, no, they didn't. Thank God they didn't. They know that I have my Patreon and that I have a pantyhose tier. Every time they come over, we do a one birthday dinner, like for each person's birthday for the year. So it's like 4 times a year. And I try to get them to do a hoser interview. I get them drunk. It's always after they've drank a lot, they're down to do something, for my pantyhose tier. We tape something together. And this time it was so, I don't know how I'm going to top it. It was so much fun.
It turned into a crazy sociological experiment. It would just
totally.
be like, boom.
There were so many layers to that. Cause like you said, it was like one that what they were just really thinking in their critique, but how they critique differently when they thought that they were women. And to me, how they were, to me, not even like harsh and not even correct. I felt like they were being like little catty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then when they found out, it was like they were like, like solidarity. You go, boys. Like you wear this.
Yeah, but it was also like they weren't. The cattiness wasn't there. They weren't comparing because this is like a man's leg, so they can't compare. But when they were a women's, and like I said, I mean, I know them girls are in front of me. These guys' legs look better. But they didn't see it. They were so judgy.
But that's what was so sexy. It's the objectification for the hoses. I don't know. I can't speak for all of them, but I know for some of us, just hearing women discard and criticize us like that is part of what's so erotic.
She got a boner when they said they didn't like his legs and he looked. He was like,
oh my God,
I got quite good feedback.
Yes, but that's what I'm always blown away by, and I always forget. Sometimes there's like one hoser named Nancy. I love Nancy. On and she always like gets insulted sometimes, and I like over apologize, and she's like, "No, I fucking love it," and I forget. Like sometimes I'm dealing with these like fetishes where me being blunt and honest and maybe dismissive or
a little
putting someone down,
insulting.
they kind of, yeah, he likes it. I was like, okay, I'm just being me. But that's cool.
The truth behind it all is the raw honesty is what just adds to it. Like you said, fetish is such a complex, layered thing, like beyond belief. Yeah. Beyond belief. It's not as simple as just going... well, actually, King, I think for you it's a bit more simple. You literally just like to wear all the time.
Yeah, I'm just a dumb. I just wear.
I don't mean it like that. I don't mean. What I mean is you haven't got. You're not like extremely submissive, or you're not a cross-dresser, and you're not.
I'm not. I have cross-dress, but I'm just saying. It's a lot of work, and also I've just been sort of put into this. When you're built the way that I am, and you look the way that I do, people assume that you're a certain way. And that's how I got the Pantyhose King monikers, because everybody assumed that I was this dominant dude. And when you're a young guy in your 20s and people are like, you're a dom, you're my master. You hear it enough that you're like, okay, well, I guess that's what I am. And then you just kind of roll with it. But I don't, I'm not, I have cross-dress. It's just,
But those little differences is what I love. Like, that's what I love, that it doesn't matter how many times certain people will connect on certain things. There's a disconnect in other places because everybody is unique. There's no way you're ever going to meet another person, whether it's a fetish person or somebody in your field that likes what you do, and you're going to be exactly the same. People are like concoctions. And I love to find those differences. To me, are what's most interesting. The fact that Pantyhose King has a pantyhose fetish, but it's different than McSheer's pantyhose fetish. Everyone's a weirdo or whatever, everyone's interesting and unique. And I try to get as much of that of a person out, so that, because I always think if there's one person like that, like you, Pantyhose King, there's going to be other people, and they're going to be like, oh, thank God, this is one, hoser I could really relate to, as opposed to maybe they don't relate as much to McSheer, or more people relate to McSheer than somebody else. But it's always about showing all different types of people, and I love those differences.
When Diane Hansen was talking to you on one of those, I think I've heard two you've done with her, and one of them she talked about the laser beam compared to women not having this laser beam. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me, because I've always sort of put stewing over this in my mind throughout my life, had a bit of an envy and a frustration that isn't sort of man versus woman, but there's just been something very, very... basically, when she said that, it made a lot of sense, because when I've spoken to girls who have got, say, quote unquote fetishes or into BDSM, they don't seem to be driven by their kink in the same way as we're
right. So is it a fetish then? That's the question. What is a fetish? Or
is a fetish in a female, in the psychological and physical makeup of a woman? Is a fetish a different thing?
Maybe it's like a fetish in drag when those women do it, if that makes any sense. It's like it's dressing up as a fetish, but it's not really.
Well, Diane said she doesn't think that women have fetishes, because I always forget exactly how she phrased it, but it made sense to me when she said it.
It's just not conducive to the way that, on a whole, and I don't want to, sound like, all encompassing. I'm sure there are some women, because in the world of realm of possibilities, there has to be one or two, that it has happened, but like with women and the way that they're wired for, like mating and stuff like that, it just doesn't really mesh as well. Whereas men, we're just wired to, fuck anything that, is moving.
Right.
Or, like sometimes not, with some fellas out there, which, by the way, I do believe, just a quick question. When do you put the line between disorder and fetish? Like, when are you like, this is gross, I don't want to talk to somebody about this? Like, do you have any like forbidden topics where you're like, that's just something I don't want to hear about? Because I
don't like anything non-consensual. And this is very bizarre, but I was even like, no, that's non-consensual. And the guy, like, back and forth, it emailed me. He was a guy that, like, there was something with insects involved. Okay. Swear to God, it was some sort of insect fetish that tied to sex, and he would get by these insects and he would cum on them or jerk off to them, but he was killing them. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was like, I can't have you on my show because it's not consensual.
Yeah. Yeah, you're murdering animals,
Yes, I don't even
dude.
step on ants. I don't know. I see life
That's
like
sick.
life
Oh
to me
God.
is, yeah, I don't know. But I was like, this is like the funniest conversation I'm having. And he was kind of like, it's a fucking ant or whatever. But I was like, no, I'm sorry. That's still not consensual. I can't, I just won't have that on. I won't have incest on. I had one guy that was kind of attracted to his mother, but I kind of thought he was lying. So I still aired him. It was like a funny story. He hadn't done anything with her, but it became a very hot episode as far as downloads, and I was very surprised. But I just got so many emails from people that wanted to talk about incest on my show, and I'm not
Oh, it's so
into it.
dark.
Yeah,
So dark.
I'm not into that kind of stuff. And I'm also not into anything where if somebody is doing something that other people don't know, like the guy that's peeping up girls' skirts and someone doesn't know. Now I have had
But
on
you
a
do a lot of
guy.
cheaters. A lot of cheaters.
Yeah, but I had that guy on that looked up, but he wanted help. He knew what he was doing was wrong. I'll talk to that guy because that guy is someone that's aware that it's wrong and maybe I could help them. But I'm not going to have someone on that is doing something that is to me morally wrong or illegal. Yeah. And they want to talk about it in a way to like get off because they think it's like fucking hot. That's what I won't do.
Yeah,
What'd you
that's
say
it.
about cheaters?
I draw a hard line with cheating personally.
No, I understand. Listen, I have cheaters on my show all the time because I think that's another thing that it's just not black and white. It's the same thing with a guy who's wears hose. I could talk to 500 cheaters and I'm going to get a different story. And each one, if you really listen to them, you might feel differently about one guy as opposed to somebody else. I had a guy named Sam on recently. He's like, "Oh, I'm your worst hated kind, Kathy." Because I do say there's like one kind that's like bottom of the barrel, the worst kind of cheater, like fucking ever. And then there's the guy that's been monogamous his whole life and he loves his wife and he has children and he wants to die with her, but she hasn't fucked him in 10 years. And he's getting to the point where he wants to cheat. That's a very different guy than the guy who's a philanderer fucking everybody's and their mother,
Agree.
So
Agree.
so I just think that there's so many different kinds of cheating. I love that conversation because I think it's very heated. I had somebody on YouTube the other day comment on a cheating episode and like anyone who cheats is terrible and you should never. And you like, yeah, in like fantasy land, it's great to be holier than thou and say cheating is no and you can never cheat and that's it. But life happens. People are messy. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes people fall in love with someone at work because they're seeing them every day and they're having issues at home. Like real life just doesn't ever go in a straight path and a straight line and things happen and people make mistakes and life's messy. And I love that kind of stuff because that's real life shit. And so I'm not judgy about it. I don't think it's right. And I think, yeah, if someone cheats on you, you want to fucking leave. You could never get that trust back. That's really hard. Leave, and that's cool if that's your thing. But I don't believe once a cheater, always a cheater. I have had on people who have gone through cheating and worked through it. And I just love all those kinds of stories. I love the people who left and were like, fuck that. I love the people who stayed and went through it, or the people who stayed and it didn't work. I love every story on it. So
you're so open. I wish I was that open, but I'm not.
Well, a lot of my friends say that. Like even before I had my show, they'd always be like, "Oh, I can't believe how non-judgmental," but that's why people tell me, like, that's why people open up to me. And I was always that person before I even had my show that I'd be talking to someone and they'd be like, "I don't know why I'm telling you all this." And
well, yeah, I get that too. I get that a lot as well, but I don't, I mean, for me, I'm just saying for me personally, I don't judge cheaters because if I did, probably 90% of the men that I've had sex with you'd
be not getting laid.
Well, they always wait I love the waiting until the sex is over to be like, "I have a partner," and I'm like, okay,
right?
Really?
When was the last time you got to tell someone, a friend, a romantic partner, a family member, or someone out of the blue? When was the last time you got to tell them about what you do with Strictly Anonymous, and what was their reaction? Okay,
I haven't told any romantic partners. I have not had to sit across from someone and drop that because it was in the beginning of my show. I did. The last guy I told was a guy named Dr. Guy who's been on my show many times with his new girlfriend. And he was the last new guy I dated. but I had a baby and I was so focused on my child. In the past 5 years, I haven't really dated. I have sex, I have booty calls, all that kind of good stuff, but those people know. So I haven't put it out there to anybody really. Recently, my sister wanted to tell her sister-in-laws, and I was like, okay, that's fine. But I don't have those conversations really. And I always think to myself with guys, the next guy I date, how does that conversation go? And when do I tell him? Because it is a secret. It is my secret life. It's my secret life.
I think, like you said about being, it's about openness. I don't think what you're doing is anywhere near. Like I've got friends who are, I know first person who ever invested in one of my films was a prostitute.
Yeah.
And I've got other friends who work in that environment, and they have to cross that bridge when they get with people, or escorts, or even strippers. Whereas I think what you're doing is just a really cool bit of media, quite simply.
Yeah, I don't think a guy's gonna care. For me, the harder thing for me is the other, like I don't tell other moms and
that's kind of what I mean. I'm trying to imagine you picking up your son from school, trying to explain at the cold light of day what a hoser is like.
I can't. And it's the problem is because a lot of times you're meeting a new mom and they're like, what do you do for a living? And I can't say I have a podcast, because then it's going to be, what is it? And there's all these questions. It's very hard to walk around that kind of information, because I don't give that out, because I don't want people to judge me. Because if they're not going to go listen to my show and they're just going to look at the titles, they're going to have a very different impression of what I do.
You should just really casually, next time another mum says, "So what do you do for a living?" You should be like, "Oh, I'm the goddess to a load of hoses," and just leave it at that.
They won't even know what that means.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Just leave them bewildered. Treat it like you're saying that you're an accountant or something. Just say it. Let's see what happens.
Well, I think that it also has to do with the fact there will be more freedom because right now you're in mama bear mode, with your kid. If what you do could possibly negatively affect your kid, in a social setting, that's probably, I bet, where a lot of the apprehension comes from. But when your son's like 20, it's who fucking cares.
Or even when he's 15, like when my son's old enough, I will explain. I'm a realist even with my child. I mean, we are straight up with each other. There's no, I'm not like hiding. He knows what life is about, and he will know what my podcast is. And I don't feel bad about it. I feel like he will be more sexually healthy than most people because I'm so open about it. I remember always hearing Howard Stern talk about how his mom always like gave him Playboys, and she was just like straight up with him. And he's very open about stuff because there's no shame or anything. I think you get much more of a dysfunction around things when you try to suppress things, as opposed to when it's just straight up in your face. Who cares? Like my son's just probably going to have like nothing that's kind of kinky or dirty or fun, because nothing's off limits here. I don't fucking care. But
he's not going to be suppressing anything. He probably won't. But
didn't you say that he had a thing for like some sort of like thing where you're like, oh no, I think it's developing.
All I gotta tell you is that I see things in him that I'm like, oh my God, these are like, and to me it's interesting because I know that these things start very early on, and I see little things in him that I'm like, wow, if these get connected to boners at some point, this is what he's going to be into. And you know what? I'm here to say this is what he's been. I know because I'm his mom that this is what he was into as a little kid before he even knew what it was. I wonder if it's going to turn into that kind of a thing later on. But I have been able to see some of those things. I think because I'm alerted to it, because I talk to guys all the time, and I always love to know what they were doing when they were little and when did that fetish come out or what they were into. Of course I'm going to look at my child and think the same thing,
Wait, has he got a little freak flag in his bedroom? One day he's going to ask you what it means.
Yes. No.
Mum, why is this freak flag flying constantly?
The freak flag.
Like, is that a thing? Is that like an actual freak flag, or you just mean like you?
No, it's Kathy's slogan, isn't it?
Saying.
That's your slogan.
Well, in the beginning it was "Let your freak flag fly." It's in the intro. I used to have a co-host when I started because it was kind of like be yourself. Yeah, be yourself. Let your freak flag fly. It was whatever you think is like the craziest part of you that you're embarrassed. Just like put it out there.
For me, it's the theme song. I just am like,
Right, but that is actual. It's like from a Jimi Hendrix song, maybe, or something. Freak Flag, like your Freak Flag Fly is from some sort of it's from somebody's music. I forget.
Is it a cover of Jimi Hendrix? Because how do you clear the rights for that?
No, not the music. The actual term, like
yes.
Yeah. It's from like a musician song or something. I don't know, but yeah, we always use the motto of the show: "Let your freak flag fly." The only good advice I'll ever give you is to rehide your whips and chains. That's in my intro all the time.
I know now what was talking about, and God, do I feel like I have egg all over my face.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, he's got a freak flag. I think I already see it. But I'm like, because I'm so interested in like subtle things and little things and all that stuff. And I'm always analyzing and putting stuff together. And my brain is like that way. That's what's interesting about you. And I remember is you're just a very contrarian. You're very strong-minded, strong-willed. That's just a part of who you are. And that's what's, like I said, that concoction of people. That's why everyone's story is a little bit different, because so many things come into play of how your life becomes. One of the things you have going for you is that you're just very strong-willed and you're going to do your own thing. You're not a follower, you're a leader. That helps you. Somebody else might not have that, and so then they fare very differently given the same circumstances. And that's what's always interesting to me, those kinds of different connections, because somebody could look at somebody and be like, oh, why am I not like them? And it's like, well, because maybe you don't have that other stuff in you, but maybe you'll relate to another person that I have on my show or something. I don't know. But I like I've always said 10 times in this episode, those kinds of little things make people unique and like I said, express things differently. And that's what's interesting.
It really comes down to just accepting. That's what I feel like. I feel like your main, if we were to do like a core breakdown of what your show really is about embracing who you are. And, it seems like that's a mission statement at its core. And I feel like ours is like that too. I feel like any top discussion of sexuality should have an agenda, and I don't, I know that's a loaded word, but of self-acceptance. Like, you don't want shame with sex. Sex and shame they're banes on humanity.
I like it. Just like you're the Pantyhose King. I love it. I love a good nickname. I think it's great. I love that you guys are doing this. I'm definitely, I'm so glad that we had taped you already. I've been holding on to it to air it for when your podcast comes out so that it could promote it for you guys. Have you been doing well?
Yes, believe it or not, we got our first episode got 200 listens on Spotify. So you said
that to me is good. And that's just on Spotify.
Yeah, we put it on Apple and we got YouTube, and we've got, on Anchor, we're already getting money for ads. We got offered to do the Anchor ad read at the beginning. So we've made 25 cents and we are fucking rolling it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. It's so good. You can make a lot of money eventually.
And I think wrapping it up is a good thing, because wrap yourself up, McSheer, in nylon and masturbate furiously, because that was an incredibly cool interview with Kathy from Strictly Anonymous. Everybody go listen to her podcast, Strictly Anonymous. You can listen to it wherever podcasts are listenable.
I also have a YouTube channel, and what I love about the YouTube to follow. I always tell people to follow me there too, because people get to comment on the episodes, and because
you do get to comment. That's true. Yes,
I love the interaction about my show. I love that part of it, so that's why I love YouTube as a platform for my podcast. So yeah, I'm on any podcast app. I'm on YouTube, and I'm also on Patreon. If you're a hoser and you want to come on and be a hoser,
I'm a patron.
I'll send you all the links.
We highly recommend Strictly Anonymous for all hosers, but we always say that we think it's the best place to be.
That's awesome.
If you're not there, you're not anywhere, frankly.
Love it.
And thanks so much, Kathy. Great to speak to you again.
It's been great. I could ask you 1,000 questions, but you've got things to do, I'm sure. But thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
So that was our interview with Kathy, and I dare I say, I think I would love to have her on again if that is any indication. There's so much that we could have talked about. Really, there is.
I feel like even when I listened to her episodes with all her other guests, I've always like wished I could have picked up, like interrupted with a question or put my hand up, you know. And I even think that about ours, having done one. I'm like, oh crap.
Who's your favorite hoser guest that has been on? Who do you like? Do you think your favorite is?
My favorite,
or one that you enjoyed thoroughly?
I thoroughly enjoyed. I can't remember his name.
Oh.
I enjoyed someone once who was really similar in their sort of similar to me in terms of why they like hose. However, I obviously really enjoyed yours, massively inspiring.
Oh,
hence why
tell me more about my eyes.
There's so many different reasons for different people's, and I also enjoyed. There's a guy, and I can't remember his name either. He came on once and he discussed why he talked about ice cream as a metaphor and how he wanted to tell his wife.
Oh, that's right.
He wanted, or his partner, whoever she was.
I think it was his wife. I think it was, yeah.
All he did, though, was tell her that he liked them on her.
know.
And she stopped wearing them. It was a really sad story.
So cruel.
And that's why I liked the episode, because he seemed really positive.
He was nice.
I empathised with him massively, and I don't know, I just enjoyed the episode. There's another couple. There's some young Australian guy that was on recently.
Oh, yeah. Nice, Aussie.
His, but I was a bit jealous of his existence as well. I was like, God, I wish at 23 I had that confidence. 26.
Did he do something good? What did he do?
No, he just explores the shit out of it. He's got no fear. He's
no fears, mate.
There's loads of good ones. Yours is good. Yours is good.
No, that's great. I mean, do you think mine would have been better if I'd used the accent?
No, I like your own Floridian accent.
My accent is it's made up like Johnny Depp's or you know the way
Tarantino, mate. Your Tarantino voice is that's the great one.
That's the thing is like I've listened to interviews with him now and I'm like I do fucking kind of sound like Quentin Tarantino. Like I do. It's weird. Very fast, very clipped.
All right.
Okay.
You've got a second
I do.
Episode coming out.
I do
now,
right?
It
should be out at the same time as this one. If you go, we're by podcastal, if that's not a word, obviously. But yep, my second episode with Kathy will be out the same day, Friday the 9th, as this one. So we're correlating. We're teaming up, as you will.
And it's probably worth pointing out, because we did mention, for those that heard the previous episode, we don't know how, we spontaneously agreed that because of we're talking about celebrities and tights and big stars, and one of them was Beyonce, and before we knew it, we are committed to dressing as her and doing that for you guys.
Yeah, and it was really hard to get McSheer to do it. I mean, like, he had to pull his leg. He was really reticent, but luckily I sat down with him and I said, come on, you got to do this, And he did. But there is actually some footage of McSheer in pantyhose that if you are a patron, you will be able to see. It is indeed his very own take on single ladies. But we call it single blokes, right? Single blokettes.
Good luck. I mean, you might want to not watch it if you watch it.
Oh, no, watch it. It's great. First of all, his legs look great, all that stuff. But the second part, you guys, it is amazing. It is enough reason to join the Patreon. You've never seen a more white dancer than our McSheer. It is the whitest thing that you have ever seen. Like, I mean, think like milk in the middle of winter, like with.
So do you mean literally the color, or do you mean the way in which I move? I
mean, you are Caucasian so hard. It's like you are just the whitest whitey white. But you're also very, fair-skinned.
I thought you meant as in the way I moved.
Yes, you dance like a white person, like a fucking white person.
That's what I was. That's pretty. Yeah. I can't stop thinking of that now. I can't believe it's me. I showed it.
It's amazing. It's wonderful.
I showed it to my girlfriend. Can you believe it?
It's amazing. It's like French and Saunders, like the way they do. Like you could tell people that you did it on purpose, and you'd be hailed a comic genius.
Let's see how it goes down with our listeners. Everyone check it out. Get on our Patreon.
It's sexy
check it out.
And funny. I think everybody if everybody wants to give like you want to get a good laugh / like a bit of a boner, check it out. But before we go, I just want to make sure everybody knows how to get to Kathy's show, which is you can check her out at patreon.com/strictlyanonymouspodcasts, all one word. You can see her on YouTube at youtube.com/channel/strictlyanonymouspodcast. And she is on Instagram at instagram.com/strictanonymous. That's strict anonymous. And that is you should definitely check her out. Obviously, if you've heard us, you've heard her. I'm pretty sure that's the way of the world, right? I mean, I would be shocked if somebody did discover it in reverse, but if so, she's the patron saint of pantyhose. She's done more for us wearers than she even realizes, and she is truly an inspiration.
Thanks for today, and we'll catch up with on episode 6. We'll speak to you all then. We have Mike.
We have Mike from Mike's Pantyhose, and maybe some of us will be wearing Hooters outfits. I don't know.
I can't take my mind off it already.
Let's just say that there is going to be quite some footage coming up. That's right, I said coming. Ayo!
Speak to you soon, King.
Okay, talk to you later. McSheer.
Bye, everyone.
Out, damn spot.